On the 8th of April, Iran was attacked by a country it did not believe was at war with it. Within an hour, missiles were flying back. Within a week, the president of Iran was reportedly shouting at his own military. He called the retaliation completely irresponsible. He called it madness. The country that struck Iran has still not admitted it did, and the country that retaliated for it has a president who says the retaliation should never have happened. This is the story of a war that the world only learned about a month later. To understand what happened on the 8th of April, you have to go back 6 weeks earlier, before the war between Iran and the United States had officially started. In February of 2026, the United Arab Emirates had a deal in place to sell 30 Mirage 2009 fighter jets to Morocco. The contract had been signed in 2025. France, which built the aircraft, had cleared the export. Morocco was already integrating the jets into its 2026 to 2027 modernization plan. And then, 3 weeks before the war began, the UAE quietly cancelled the transfer. The 30 aircraft stayed at Al Dhafra Air Base in heightened readiness. The Moroccan Air Force was told the delivery would not be happening. No public reason was given. 6 weeks later, those same aircraft would be circling over the Persian Gulf with their wingtips empty of national markings, releasing standoff cruise missiles into the night air above an Iranian island. This is not a story about a country that reacted to events. This is a story about a country that prepared for them. The Wall Street Journal published its exposé on the 11th of May, naming the United Arab Emirates as a covert combatant in the war between Iran, the United States, and Israel. The headline focused on a single strike. A UAE Mirage 2009 had hit the IRGC refinery on Lavan Island, an Iranian oil processing facility roughly 130 kilometers off Iran's mainland coast. The strike sparked a major fire. It knocked out most of the refinery's capacity for months, and it happened, according to WSJ sources, somewhere around the moment Trump was announcing the US-Iran ceasefire was about to take effect. That was the headline. The headline missed almost everything. The Lavan strike was not the first time UAE aircraft had hit Iranian soil. In early March, Israeli media reported that UAE Mirages had struck a desalination plant on Qishm Island, one of Iran's largest. Iran's response at the time was to retaliate against the United States. The IRGC concluded the strike must have come from the US naval base at Jaffa in Bahrain and fired guided missiles into that base. The UAE did not correct the misattribution. A senior Emirati official named Ali Al-Nuaimi was asked about the reports and replied with a sentence that aged like milk on a hot day. He said, "When we do something, we have the courage to announce it." That was March. By April, the doctrine had matured. The Lavan operation was not an air raid in the conventional sense. The UAE pilots never entered Iranian airspace. The aircraft was the Mirage 2009, an export variant Dassault built exclusively for the UAE. 62 airframes purchased in 1998 for $3.2 billion. The most capable Mirage 2000 ever exported. The UAE versions carry the RDY 2 multi-mode radar with synthetic aperture and moving target indicator modes, the IMEWS electronic warfare suite, the Shihab laser designation pod, and the weapon that almost certainly destroyed the Lavan refinery, the Black Shaheen, a UAE-specific variant of the MBDA Apache air-launched cruise missile with a range of approximately 600 kilometers. Lavan Island sits roughly 130 kilometers off Iran's coast. The Black Shaheen has a 400-kilometer reach into Iranian airspace from a launch point over UAE territory. The Mirage 2009 never has to cross any Iranian air defense boundary. The pilot releases the missile somewhere over the southern Gulf, turns, and goes home. The Black Shaheen does the rest. Iran's coastal radars see an inbound missile. They do not see the aircraft that launched it. The strike caused a major fire. Most of the refinery's capacity was offline for months. 0 casualties were reported. This is what a calibrated infrastructure strike looks like in 2026. Maximum strategic damage, minimum human cost, maximum deniability. What happened next is where the story splits in two. Iran's response was not calibrated. Within roughly an hour of the Lavan strike, the IRGC launched a comprehensive retaliation against the United Arab Emirates and Kuwait. By the time the war was over, the UAE Ministry of Defense was reporting more than 530 ballistic missiles, more than 2,200 drones, and more than 24 cruise missiles fired at its territory. The retaliation continued in waves for weeks. 13 people were killed, 224 were injured. Dubai International Airport closed multiple times. The Habshan gas complex caught fire from interception debris. A fire broke out at the Ruwais industrial complex, home to a refinery that processes nearly 1 million barrels of oil per day. The UAE intercepted most of what Iran fired, using THAAD and Patriot batteries that had been purchased years earlier with this exact scenario in mind. But here is where the story turns, because Iran's retaliation was not apparently authorized by Iran's elected government. According to reports from Iran International, the Persian-language exile broadcaster, Iranian President Masoud Pezeshkian called the IRGC's UAE strikes completely irresponsible. He called them madness. He was reportedly furious that the Revolutionary Guards had launched the most intense retaliatory wave of the entire war without consulting him. The covert deniable strike from the UAE was answered by an overt, undeniable strike from the IRGC. And the man who is officially the commander-in-chief of Iran's armed forces apparently did not know it was happening until after it had begun. This is what almost no coverage of this story is engaging with. There are two civil-military splits hidden inside the Lavan and retaliation cycle, one inside the United Arab Emirates and one inside Iran. They are mirror images of each other. The UAE split is the one Western coverage has noticed. Abu Dhabi conducted a deniable strike using Mirages whose pilots almost certainly did not include their names in any after-action report that would ever see daylight. The Ministry of Defense did not announce it. The Foreign Ministry referred reporters to a vague statement about the right to respond to hostile acts. And when the Wall Street Journal exposed it a month later, the UAE response was the same: no confirmation, no denial. This is what a state looks like when its civilian and military leadership are coordinated on a deniable doctrine. Everyone is on the same page. The page is, we don't talk about this. The Iranian split is the one almost nobody is talking about. Pezeshkian, who according to the Iranian constitution is the commander-in-chief of Iran's armed forces, was apparently not in the loop when the IRGC made the largest single decision of the war on the UAE front. The civilian president learned about the retaliation the way the rest of the world did, through state media, after it had started. And his response was not to publicly back his military. His response, leaked through dissident channels within days, was to call the retaliation madness. This is what a state looks like when its civilian and military leadership are not coordinated. The IRGC operates on its own clock. The president operates on his. The supreme leader who would have arbitrated between them was assassinated by US and Israeli airstrikes in February. Nobody has clearly inherited his authority. The IRGC fills the vacuum with action. The president fills it with frustration that leaks to exile media. And the war happens anyway. The Wall Street Journal's exposé was not really about the United Arab Emirates becoming a combatant. The UAE has been a combatant for years. The Tajura migrant detention center in Libya was struck by a foreign Mirage 2000 in 2019, according to a UN panel of experts investigation that named no country but pointed clearly at the only operator of Mirage 2000s in the Libyan theater that summer. The UAE has been conducting deniable operations against adversaries it cannot openly fight for nearly a decade. Lavan was not a debut, it was a maturation. The real story is the asymmetry. One state runs a deniable doctrine where its military and its civilian leadership are aligned around silence. The other state runs an overt retaliation where its military and its civilian leadership are pulling in different directions. One state strikes infrastructure, kills no one, and never admits it. The other state launches more than 2,500 munitions at its neighbor and cannot control who authorized them. The lesson sitting underneath this story is the one that will shape the next phase of the Gulf conflict, regardless of how many ceasefires are signed. It is not that the UAE has joined the war, it is that the UAE has demonstrated a capability to wage war below the threshold of accountability, while Iran has demonstrated an inability to control the threshold of escalation. When the war's history is written, the Lavan strike will be a single paragraph. The Pezeshkian IRGC fracture will be a chapter. And the question that almost nobody is asking will be the chapter title. If a state cannot tell you who fired its missiles, how will it tell you when the war is over?